Alright guys, so today we're going to continue learning more Tailwind CSS classes. And today we're going to be working with containers and with divs. So we're going to be learning some classes related to containers. And we're going to be working with width and height and margin. Okay, good. So let's get started. I'm going to create a div here, and it's going to be an empty div. So here we're going to add some classes and we're going to start. In Tailwind, if you want to add a width property, we just write W and then we write a number. For example, I'm going to write 20. And for example, to add the height, I write H and I write a number, for example, 40. And now I have a div that has this size. But why can't we see it? Because it's there. It's just that it doesn't have a background color. So remember last tutorial, we're gonna add some background color. Let's add a red and then 500. You see? It was there all the time. So width, it has 20 and then a height of 40. All right. So if you are wondering if 20 means pixels or if 40 means pixels, you can go to the Tailwind documentation and read about it. For example, if we give it a width of 20, this equals 80 pixels. So you can see the tables here to see how much that it is in pixels. All right. But we're gonna just keep talking not in pixels but in Tailwind classes. So with 20 and height 40, you can change this like in any way you want. Say you want this to be a square, so this would be a height of 20. It's just as simple as that. All right. And for example, what if I add a 100? Yeah, that's gonna also work. All right, good. So now let me teach you a shortcut that you can use if you don't want to add width 20, height 20. In case the width and the height are the same, there is a shortcut for you, and you just need to write size and you write, for example, 20, and there it is. So when you give the size class, you're going to be adding height and width. But remember, this only works when we have the same number for height and width. All right. So in case you want to create a rectangle, so you would need to do something different, say a width of 80 and a height of 20. So there it is. It is a rectangle. Good. So those are three properties that you need to remember. Very good. So is this the only way we can add width and height in Tailwind? No, there are also other ways. For example, you can also work with numbers like 1/2. So as you can see, it has a height of 20 and the width is taking half of the container here. In this case, like the viewport, all right? You can also work, for example, with 1/3. So now this is 1/3 of the viewport or 1/3 of the container. And same thing applies for the height. So if you write a height here of 1/2, what do you think will happen? Nothing. Actually, this is not working. Why this is not working? Because the width takes into account the width. Let me put this back. Takes into account the width of the container, in this case the body, so it's going to take it, but the height doesn't know like what height it is taking the reference from. So if you want this to be like applied, we would need to have a parent div. So say we're going to have a div here and we're going to put this in here and we're going to give this div a class of height screen. Okay, so now I have a container that has the height of the screen. So now if I take this and go 1/2, voila, so now it is working because this div right here now has a reference which is its parent. that is right here. Okay, so this is important for you to understand, otherwise this is not going to work. All right, in case you want to use this type of height properties. So, and we can also go, for example, with full, and we can also go with height full. You see, so this is going to be applying the full width and the full height of its parent, that in this case is this. So if I make, say, this, for example, smaller, oh yes, but now in this case, this doesn't have a parent, right? So we can go with hide screen. How about that? You see? And now this is the same thing. So let me just probably summarize this. So when you have a container, you can write classes for width and height with W and H, and just create a div, a container. Oh, sorry. Let's change the color of this. Now let's go with a green color. Green 500. There it is. So, but in case the width and the height are the same, you don't need to do that. You can just simply add size and the number. And there you go. It's just a shortcut. Now, if you want, for example, to include a height of 20 and a width of half of the container, so you just write this type of numbers. This will be 1/3, 1/4, etc., etc. And be careful with the height property, because for the height property we need a reference, so we need a parent. So in this case, if you need, for example, full and a width of full, the width is applied, but we don't know the reference. So this is important for you to know. You will need a parent. All right, good. I think that's basically. Oh, something I forgot is, let me erase this again. I'm going to create a div that's going to have another div inside. This div is going to have a class of width 80 and height 20. All right, and so we can see it. I'm going to add a border of 2, and that border is going to have a color of red 500. Okay, you can see it. It's right here. Now this div, I'm going to add a class of, say, width 1/2. Oh, but let's change the color. So background green 300. Okay, there it is. So now this div right here has a width of 1/2, but it doesn't have a height, so we need to add a height. So if we go height, also 1/2. Ta-da! There it is. So it's width 1/2 and height 1/2. We have a property called full. Width is going to be full, and we're going to have a property of height also full. So now it's like it's taking the whole div. We also have a property called screen. Okay, so what's the difference between with full and with screen? I think it's very, very obvious, right? You see what's happening here. When I say full, it's going to take the sizes of its parent. But if I say screen, it's going to take the size of the screen. It's taking into consideration the viewport. And the same thing applies for height. So height full, full of what? Full of my parent. But if you say screen, it's just going to ignore that and it's going to overflow. So those are probably two classes that sometimes people get confused. I got confused with those, but now I understand that full takes into consideration its parent and screen takes into consideration the viewport. All right, good. I think that was a really good explanation of some basic width and height properties. All right, good. For example, let's practice a little bit. Imagine you want to create a circle. It's very simple. You just go div and you write a class. Let's give it a background. It's going to be violet. It's going to be 500. It's going to have a size, a width and a height at the same time of 40. There it is. And we're gonna make this a circle. Remember this from previous class? Rounded, full. Voila. So now we have a complete circle. You can play with this with the exercises that we give you here in Tailwind Trainer, okay? Before you go, we need to work also with some margin properties. And for that, we're gonna be working with a picture that I'm gonna take from Google, uh, and we're gonna add it right here, okay? The alternative text is going to be programmer. Okay, and now let's add some Tailwind classes. So class, this is going to have only a width of 1/3 of the screen. You see? It's right there. Good. Now, let's go work with margin. You can work with margin with the letter M. So M goes for margin, and you can add, for example, a margin of 10. So now it has 10 on the top, 10 on the right, 10 on the bottom, and 10 on the left. This applies for the four sides, but you can also add them specifically. For example, if you want to be more precise, I want to be a margin top of 10 and a margin left of 3. So as you can see, here on the top we have 10, and the left we have 3, and we have nothing on the right or bottom, okay? So this is also a way that you can add. In the same way as we learn for the padding, you can also go with, for example, padding Y of 10. So this is going to have margin on the top, margin on the bottom. And the same applies for margin X. So now we have a margin on the left of 10 and a margin to the right of 10. I think it's very easy to understand. I think this is not very complex. But I want you to understand this other trick that we have with CSS and with Tailwind, of course. If you have a margin X of auto, this is going to center a div or a container or a picture. Isn't that cool? So you just write MX and you don't give it a number. You just write auto. And that's going to center the div horizontally. Okay? You can use flags and other alternatives to center a container, but I think this is probably very useful. Now imagine you want this to be at the right. So we're just going to go, okay, so margin left, and now my picture is on the right. So basically, this is like creating something here on the left and pushes the picture to the right. Okay, this is basically how it works. It will write margin right auto. So this is creating something here on the blank space and pushing the container to the left. I mean, but this is basically the default value. So the one I want you to remember is margin X auto and margin left auto, because that's going to push the picture wherever you want. Okay, good. I think that's it for today. So we learned some properties related to width, height, size as well. We saw the difference between full versus screen, and we also included some margin properties. So I hope this is enough for you to complete the exercises.